I only get Daryl Morey a couple times a year, and his Rockets are in Los Angeles to take on the Lakers. He has been the Rockets GM for 11 years. NBA Executive of the Year multiple times. You now have a beard. You look very professorial, very academic. You're also, I mean, you went to MIT anyway, but it does, you grew a beard. Why?
I started when James started his 30-point streak and figured I'd have to shave it soon, but no, here it is, still going.
So the best player on your team and the GM got a beard thing going. Do you worry, though? And I said this last year. I don't think people understand it. To play on both ends of the floor at an elevated level is hard. I mean, Kobe at one point was a good defensive player. He didn't do a lot of it after about year 10. LeBron's not the same defensive player. Not a criticism. It's a reality. Do you worry that James, the effort to score 35 in this league, it's daunting that he could be gassed by the second round?
He had to do it. I mean, we've had so many injuries. This is our first healthy night for our starters, I think, in months.
Tonight?
Basically. Tonight.
Wow.
Yeah, against the Lakers. So we're full strength, and we're against playoff LeBron. It should be
Superman Cape LeBron.
It should be a great show for folks. Hopefully we do it well. But, we were in bad shape. We had Chris out. We had Clint out. We needed him to step up. He put us on his shoulders. He's actually been playing both ends really well, having his best defensive season as well.
Yeah.
So the reality is, it's what we needed. You can fall out of the West easily, as the team we're playing tonight knows.
It is interesting. For years and years there was a narrative: the West is better than the East. I bought it. I think the East is a little better this year than it's been in years. I want to throw a theory, and I've never been able to figure it out. Mm-hmm. I've never been able to figure this out.
Oh, why that's the case?
Why for 20 years the West is better than the East. Now, I used to float a theory that it's a winter league, and players would rather wake up in Phoenix and L.A. than Chicago. Why do you think the West has been the spot?
My theory, and to your point, it's all theory, I think just frankly the owners are better in the West. They've been consistent. I think ownership is the number one factor for a lot of these teams. They set the tone, they hire the people, everything. And if you look at the West owners, they've consistently been very good.
So it's kind of just happenstance. It worked out that way.
Yeah, I think so.
I would argue NFC owners outside of Bob Kraft always felt a little better than AFC owners. So I think that may be it.
Maybe smart owners like buying teams in nice weather places. So maybe that's more.
You just went second level thinking on me. Player mobility, I've moved a lot. So I would be an utter hypocrite. You and I have talked about this. For me to go on the air and say don't move. I'm always pro mobility. I'm going to throw a mythology at you. I think LeBron and Michael are just historic outliers in the sport. Okay? LeBron's political. Most players aren't. Kevin Durant's like, I just want to play basketball. Is that when LeBron leaves, there is no other LeBron. Is that most players are closer. James Harden's not gregarious. Kawhi Leonard's not gregarious. Giannis says, I want to stay in Milwaukee. Damian Lillard. A lot of this is fear-based from smaller markets. But LeBron is very rare. He has historic aspirations. That player mobility is oversold, and the country, the commissioner, we're freaking out about something that has largely been empowered by LeBron, but he's probably gone and out of the league in 5 years. I just think player mobility, it's fear-mongering. I see it with political hosts. I see it with sports hosts. What do you make of player mobility?
I think it's very good for the league. I think it keeps us at the top of, your show and other shows. I think players should be able to go play where they want to play. I think a lot of the changes to shorter contracts have increased player mobility. I'm a big fan of player empowerment. I think players are the talent. Players are the people who generate the wins. And I like when players get to choose where they want to be because I think, to be frank, I think that favors the Houston Rockets. Players want to play with us. Players want to play with the best team. So we're a big fan of player mobility.
But the smaller markets, Daryl, what do you say to that?
I'm not in one.
That's a good answer. Yeah, Yeah, it's somebody else's problem.
Yeah, no, my job is to help the Houston Rockets win, so I focus on that. And I get that the league office has to worry about those issues, but for me, I'm just trying to win the championship somehow.
One of the things, we can't talk about Zion Williamson, but I do think there's an interesting conversation to have. We have the NBA, that's the entree, and college basketball has always been sort of the appetizer. There is a league in between those two that I think is wildly underrated called the G League. Now, I don't think last night was the end of Nike college basketball or amateurism, but I do think there were a handful of 16, 17, 18-year-olds that watched that and thought,
I think Adidas is very excited right now, too.
The G League. One of the reasons I'm not a huge believer you have to pay all college athletes, because if you are a basketball prodigy, and there's about 7 domestic kids a year that are literally good enough to go to the NBA, maybe need about an hour with Mike Krzyzewski or Bill Self, that the G League is an absolutely viable transition league. Do you believe that, or am I overstating it?
No, absolutely. In fact, it's underrated. Commissioner Silver has done a fantastic job growing that. People don't realize the worst D-League team would beat Duke by 20 to 30 points on a given night.
Yes.
The level of play is super high. The talent is super high. I see a huge future in the G-League. I think it'll be a viable option for these players. And a viable option is playing overseas as well. I think you saw Luka Doncic, tweet about, hey, players should maybe play overseas like I did. He made significant money over there before he came over. I do think the G League is an up-and-coming model.
Is there any value to college basketball?
For me to evaluate them as draft picks, yes.
You're being very honest today. I really appreciate that. Okay, so you said this, and I just pushed back. I didn't love this comment. Love the beard, didn't love this. You said that Harden could be in the conversation as the best offensive player of all time. And I said, he's not as good as Kobe. He's not as athletic. I don't think he's quite as long. I don't think he's as vertical. I don't think he's Kobe. Now, I'm not going to deep dive into analytics. So for you to say that, knowing your MIT background and your analytics specialization, why do you say that? Because I look at Kobe and James, and they're both all-timers, but I lean Kobe because I think he was a little longer, a little bigger, a little more athletic, and a little more vertical. So there's a dimension there finishing at the rim. All right, that's my pushback.
Yeah, I don't want to compare too much to Kobe. He's an all-time great, so you can't take anything away from him. But if you just look at offensively, the best offenses of all time are currently playing in the NBA. They're our team. They're Golden State.
Yeah.
And just literally the fact that when we cross half court, we score more points than any team has in history. And how does that happen? It's happening because of the great players on our teams. And obviously Golden State has multiple top players. We have James Harden and Chris Paul. We didn't have Chris Paul a lot of the season. If you just look at James Harden and when he drives to the basket, what happens? Out of isolation, out of a set, he generates more points than basically any player in history. So that's my argument. People made it sound like this horrible comment, and then I felt better. There was like 10 articles after basically saying, no, Daryl's right. He is one of the best offensive players of all time. Until we get a ring, people aren't gonna probably recognize that. But offensively, his talents are undeniable.
What I've always liked about you, we had lunch a couple of months ago, and people forget this. Bill Belichick has whiffed on all sorts of draft picks.
He just has a lot of them, which is smart.
Yeah, and that is smart. The reality is you can't look within a kid's soul. You can do as much scouting. When you look at the NBA today, who's a player in the NBA that has shocked you, that is significantly better than you thought, even with your scouting department, with your expertise, your Celtics, your MIT, your Rockets? Is there a guy you're like, I didn't see that?
Yeah, no, there's quite a few. I mean, in the NBA, it's hard for me to talk specifically about them, but the guys who are picked later, really the NBA missed on them. You look
Klay
at
Thompson.
He was picked later. Then you can even go into the second round. There's been some great players in the second round picked recently. So, we like to think it's a science, the draft. And the reality is it's still 70, 80% not science. It's luck or art, whatever you want to call it.
What matters to you? Now, using today's game, I don't want back to the basket bigs. I want the Euro big, face to the basket, highly skilled. What matters when you look at a player? Obvious. Mark Warkentine was an exec.
Yeah.
He used to always say, "You guys never talk about length." He goes, "I love length." He goes, "Scottie Pippen gave me 2 tip passes.
Yeah.
Jordan converted one of those to a basket. That won a lot of games in 10 years." What do you look at?
Yeah, you mentioned length. That's actually the only physical factor when you control for how you play that actually is additive. It actually helps you predict what they're going to do in the NBA. So Warkentine was on that. I would say the biggest thing we look for, it sounds silly, but it's like a guy who really elevates his team's ability to win. We haven't picked high in a long time.
Right.
Our highest pick ever is 14 since I've been with the Rockets. So we're generally picking not among the hyper talented guys that everyone talks about, but among the grinders and the winning players. And we look for those players who love the game, who are going to continue to work on their game, and who already are doing it in college. That's generally what we look for, and we've had a very good track record with that.
Tonight, Rockets-Lakers, Chris Paul Rondo facing since the spitting incident. I could forget a lot of things, but if Joy spit on me in between segments, a year from now, if I saw Joy for the first time, it wouldn't sit well. I would not blame Chris Paul if he was not in the greatest mood tonight. Are you concerned about that experience?
Chris is one of the most intense guys I've ever been around. Whether he's been spit on or not, I think he's bringing it 100% always. So he doesn't have a mode. He doesn't have a playoff mode and a non-playoff mode. So Chris is bringing it tonight. Whether he's been spit on or not, I don't think it's a big factor.
How did you know Harden and Chris Paul were going to work? For the record, I liked it and enjoy. I don't know. You weren't on the show yet. My takeaway was they're both really smart. If you put 2 smart people in a room, they'll figure it out. But that's my rule in any business. But there was a lot of pushback that their styles didn't work. You rolled the dice. Why?
So that's the right answer. That we thought it would work, but we didn't know. Nobody knows, right? No one knows for sure. I think we had a lot of things that made us feel good. Coach D'Antoni coached them both together in USA Basketball. USA Basketball shows that if you get smart, good basketball players, they're going to make winning plays together.
Right.
It's only when you get talented players who maybe don't think the game well. But Chris is he's not only good, he's good for a lot of reasons. But a key reason he's good is he's extremely smart.
Yes.
That's also true of James Harden. The fact that they're both smart and they're put in a great system by Mike, we thought it could work. It actually worked better than we thought, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was better.
Yeah. By the way, you have a new owner, and owners can be demanding. You've made moves. You're never afraid to make moves, which is interesting because when you're on a good team, you don't want to disrupt character. You've been you're a dice roller. So, and a lot of, it's easy if you've got 9 wins. Right? The Knicks can make all sorts of moves.
Right.
But you're good. You're seen as the real challenger to the Warriors, and you've made acquisitions. I know Trevor Ariza was painful, but you can't sit around and whine about it. Where do the epiphanies come? When is it a discussion with your scouting department? It's a drive to work. What is the trigger moment for you to go, I'm doing it?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at some signings right now, so this is pretty relevant. And to your point, Tillman Fertitta, what I love about him is he's been successful at everything else by being a risk seeker, a smart risk seeker, and he's empowered us to really take that mode.
He has,
and that's a mode that we like because we're still chasing the Warriors, all-time great team. Probably should have won 4 titles in a row, won 3. We need to take risks. We're not as good as them. We hope to be as good as them by April 15th. So we're going to continue to take swings at this. We took swings at the start of the year. Everyone sort of criticized what we did, what we didn't do. Our goal is to be the best team on April 15th. That's always been our goal, and that's what I'm moving towards. And that means trying things.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.